Monday began as many Mondays do. I awoke around 6 a.m., neck stiff from the awkward position I had slumbered in. I pushed myself off the couch groggily and moseyed my way to bed, hoping in vain for my weary aches to dull in the brief sleep I had left. Jessica stirred as I slipped into bed, but fell back to sleep. Just before 8, I rose again, ready as I would ever be for work that day. Jessica had already left for work, and the apartment was quiet, except for the occasional creaks from neighbors upstairs walking around. It was the end of the month, and the company I worked for was nearing our quarterly goal. Always a stressful time for an underwriter. Not that I cared for their goals, I was just there for the paycheck. I made sure to give myself enough time to stop at the gas station for a few energy drinks to make it through the day. Between the stress and the jitteriness from all the monsters I was consuming, I'm surprised I didn't collapse. But by some miracle I made it through the day and clocked out right at 6. They aren't keeping me a minute later, I thought to myself. My drive home was dark, but this was typical in winter. Fat raindrops were splattering across my windshield, and as I looked ahead from my limited visibility, I saw what looked like a white-clad figure sitting in the middle of the road ahead. I tried to ease on my brakes, but my tires slipped, and I began skidding sideways into the poor soul. There was a jolt, followed by a sickening crunch and what might have been a scream before I finally came to a stop. Shit, I thought as my mind raced. Had I just killed someone? Maybe they were okay. But that sound, I had to help them. I got out yelling against the noise of the rain. Hey, are you okay? No response came, so I walked around my car to see. Nothing. There was nothing there. I looked around perplexed and found no trace of the figure in white. No blood, no dent, nothing. What the hell? I climbed back in my car, shaken and soaked to the bone, when I heard the faintest whisper in the back seat.
Don't worry.
I whipped around, only to find an empty seat. Heart pounding and confused as hell, I made my way home to tell Jessica what had happened. She was as baffled as I was, but tried to comfort me in saying it was likely the stress and my poor diet that day, advising me to get some rest. Perhaps it was due to my caffeine-fueled delirium. I've never been particularly healthy overall, so maybe it was just age catching up to me. I shook it off, and after watching a few episodes of Friends on Netflix together, we went to bed. The next day I was feeling a lot better, and took Jessica's advice, making a nice breakfast before work. As I was buttering my toast, I heard the whispers again.
I know you can hear me,
the silky, faint voice proclaimed. But again, there was no one there. Hello? I said, trying to sound brave, but my traitorous voice quivered. The cold stillness was my only response. I rushed to the bathroom and slapped some water on my face. The cool water reminded me I was still awake, but did nothing to ease my anxieties. Was this some prank? Did Ian leave a walkie-talkie in my place one day or something? That was possible, knowing Ian. But my car too? Not likely. And it wasn't his voice I was hearing. It sounded like a woman, but familiar somehow. Was it my sister? Mother? None of these thoughts made any sense, but as I was pondering these ridiculous scenarios, I heard the whisper again.
I'll never leave you.
My breath caught in my chest. A chill slid down my spine as I yelled, "Hello?" Silence. I called in sick to work and booked myself a doctor's appointment. I blasted music on the way there, but the voice slipped through the din again, as if I wasn't hearing it with my ears, but in my own head.
Come home. Come home.
It repeated.
Come home now.
For nearly the whole drive, it delivered its soft refrain. Why can't I shake this? Was I suffering from schizophrenia all of a sudden? Stop! I yelled into my windshield. Please, whoever you are, just stop. When I reached the doctor's office, all I could hear was my radio as the voice had abated again. The doctor ran some tests, but ultimately found nothing conclusive and recommended me to a psychiatrist he knew, who wrote her dissertation on late-onset schizophrenia. Over the next several months of counseling and a veritable cornucopia of drugs, the voices never stopped. I found myself slipping into despair, praying it would end, but the whispers became my one constant.
I know you can hear me. I'll never leave.
I became reclusive, shutting everyone out, including Jessica, who had stayed by my side, trying to help me in any way she could. The whispers never stopped their steady refrain as I isolated myself, working from home to avoid seeing anyone. I rarely showered and didn't shave at all. Small pimples had formed on my brow and cheeks from a mix of stress and poor hygiene. After a time, it all became too much for her, and Jessica left, saying I wasn't even trying anymore, and that I needed to go back to the therapy I'd abandoned.
Come home.
The whispers breezed. I've always been a skeptic about paranormal events, but after several years of nothing from my treatment, I became desperate for any answers. Searching Google for hours on end and page after page, I became increasingly erratic. My apartment was a wreck of fast food, dirty laundry, and bottles upon bottles of empty beers scattered about. At one point, I had even shattered my bathroom mirror, thinking they were living inside there. Maybe it was some deceased soul latching onto me, siphoning away at my willpower until I gave in to it. Or worse yet, a demon luring me into its trap. "You won't take me," I yelled into empty air. "No!" I exclaimed like a toddler throwing a tantrum. I would not give in to its challenge, fearing what would happen if I ever did. I pounded my head in vain, frantically rocking back and forth in my hysteria. These demons will never take me alive, I thought, sliding the broken glass down my arm. Dr. Ellison hesitated before opening the door. This was never easy, no matter how many times he had to do it, but there was no recourse. This patient would likely never wake. The car accident had ensured he would never walk again for sure, but the bigger issue was the brain damage. Even if he awoke, he might have to relearn everything, or may not ever be the same again. "Mrs. Smith," he said softly as he walked in, "may we speak in private?" She nodded, patting her husband's hand gently as she stood. Before she followed the doctor out, she leaned over and kissed his cheek, before whispering in his ear,
I know you can hear me. I'll never leave you.
Hey guys and ladies, thanks for watching. If you want me to tell your story or read a creepypasta, email me at the address in the description. Seriously, send me some stories. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Corey Rhino. Be good to animals, even people. Sure.
Scout, Snammock, Barksbus, Herish.
You ever look for your phone and you're holding it? That is the peak of evolution. I'm holding it in front of my face, looking for it. Hey, bird. You be nice to that bird. Look at it. Hey, bird. Hey, Ripley.